Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're
we can, I
recording.
think it started.
All right, so you know how I said in C sharp, it builds on what you did in PowerShell, but it's a lot more powerful, right? PowerShell is a light version of classes and whatnot. And this is one of those aspects where C sharp really goes the extra mile over PowerShell. So we're going to talk about properties today, class properties, and fields and backing variables. So, okay, when you create a class, you can set these two properties, eyes and legs. This is the cats class, right? So they have eyes and legs, and I can get and set. Inside my program, I'm setting legs to 4, eyes to 2, and I just run that puppy, and I can see very simply the truth, right? Okay, so that works. Now, this is called automatic properties right here. But there's a lot that happens behind the scenes to make these automatic properties possible. And automatic properties is all you have in PowerShell, right? Um, from a property perspective. But you can do more with it. So you can actually run these these get and set operations, or actually more the set operation yourself, right? So what happens when I call this, or when I write this, and more specifically when I use these automatic properties? So what happens is these get and set are actually more methods, right? And they create automatically what's called a backing variable. So a lot the same way that, or exactly the same way that if you don't create a constructor, it kind of assumes a constructor, right? And creates it for you in the background. This is the same thing. It creates a backing variable for you in the background. Now, in order to understand what a backing variable is and why it's necessary, we go to this next demo. So I'm going to comment that one, and I'm going to uncomment this one. There. I'm just looking to see if no, I didn't. Okay. So what we're looking for here is we're looking for, I'm trying to move that. There we go. I want to set eyes. So when I get eyes, I just want to return eyes. But when I set eyes, I want to set eyes equal to value. And value, of course, is a built-in variable that means the value that was passed in. You with me so far? So when I set this guy right here, right?
Yeah.
This is value. And so it
Yes.
sets it equal to value.
Right.
Okay, perfect. So I set eyes equal to value. Now, what happens when I set eyes is it calls a method called set property, right? Anytime this is changed, it calls set property. You with me so far?
Okay.
So here's what happens. Eyes equals value. So then set property gets called, right? And set property sets eyes equal to value.
Right.
Which forces set property to be called again, which sets eyes equal to value, which causes set property to be called again, which sets eyes to value.
Okay.
So you're in this infinite loop. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get an overflow error when we run this. I'll go back to here. And I'm not doing any error handling, but there's my Stack Overflow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it detects that infinite loop, and it would just sit there and just run forever, right? So that's no good. So that's what a backing variable is. A backing variable is you're setting it, instead of setting legs equal to legs, I'm setting legs equal to something else. So let me collapse this guy, do that. And now let's bring this guy into play. Nope, I'm going to undo that. So you notice how I've got eyes and then lowercase i's, right? So I'm returning lowercase i's. And when I set lowercase i's equal to value. So so when I set this guy, I'm actually returning this guy and setting this guy. Right?
Okay, yeah.
So that's called a backing variable. When that variable is really the one backing up the value for i's. Because when I call get, actually, I've got it right here, right? When I turn get, it's going to return this guy. This guy is just almost like a virtual variable, right? It almost doesn't even exist. It's there just to be presented to the user, right? Kind of. I know some hardcore C# guys would watch this and go, "No, that's not how it works." Yeah, but I'm talking, idiomatically, right? Go ahead.
No, is a temporary variable. It would be your small e.
Well, I didn't say temp variable. I said virtual.
Virtual variable. Yeah.
So this guy is real, right? Because it's defined up here.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's defined up there as a class variable, right? And these class variables in C# speak are called fields. And they get really upset when you call them anything else. So if you've got a private string or any kind of private variable that is accessible only inside the class, it is a field. And the public ones that we have here are properties. But again, in a sense, this doesn't really exist. The only reason this exists is to give a public face to be able to set this guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So now when I run this again, I'm back to normal.
Yeah.
And this can be really handy when you're going to set these variables, because you can have, you can check values in here. You can say if value is between this and this, then do this. If it's this and this, then do that, right? So you can put code inside this set that's really intricate, right? Including error handling and all that kind of stuff, right? So you can see why it's necessary to have this construct, but you just need to know how it works. So you can use this to say like, legs. Let's say that, cats can have up to 4 legs, right? Because they could be, this particular cat could have lost a leg, right? So you could have a cat, I suppose, that's more like a doormat that lost all 4 legs. So you could say, you could check in here to make sure that legs is between 0 and 4, right?
Right.
And if it's not between 0 and 4, then, throw an error or set it automatically to 4 or something like that, right? So you can use this to check your values as they come in and shoot up errors, appropriate errors if they don't match your needs. So you can do a lot here. And so this guy is the backing variable. It backs up the property and actually holds the value for the property. Now, there are
Right.
two naming conventions for these guys. The new one, which is just taking the property and making it lowercase. And then the older one, which is prefacing it with an underscore. I've seen them both in use today. I don't know if I have a preference. I want to say something like with my own personal code, I don't mind the lowercase because I know how I case my variables, right? And so if it's all lowercase, then I know it's got to be a backing variable. But with the way other people case things, you can't rely on that necessarily. In fact, you can't rely on it at all. So I would prefer the underscore in that case, because that's like the I iterator, right? It's been around since time began, and everybody always used the I for loop iterations. And so this is kind of the same way. The underscore has been here, as far as I know, since we were able to do this. So, both conventions are correct. I have a preference based on the day, right? So, but when you have your, let's go back here. Yeah, that's right. So let's go back here. And now we'll come back here to the auto variables, or the auto properties. And all that stuff that we just did is done automatically here. It automatically creates the backing variable for you and sets it equal to the value, and then returns that value in the get. So this is just C# shorthand for what we just did in the second demo.
Right.
Any questions?
So when we are declaring these auto properties, it has to be same, like the private string is small e there in i's. Here it is capital E. Is that a convention or?
I think you can have properties with small letters, but I think the compiler will complain as a warning, because it's a convention to have properties being capitalized, and it doesn't really matter what you set the backing property to, right? Or the backing var. You could make this, Sean's eyes and Sean's legs for all it cares, right? But as far as like readability and conventions, right? This one will map to either this one or this one. You don't want to make it, you don't want to make it confusing, right? I mean, because
yeah.
So yeah, you don't want to make it confusing. So, and if you look here, I actually managed to comment out that method. There we go. You see, I'm returning eyes and I'm returning legs, because when I do the get, it returns this field instead.
Yeah.
And here, it does it automatically.
True.
And I think behind the scenes, it creates this one.
Right. What if you don't declare those private variables? It still works, right?
If I don't declare the private variables and I try to set them down here,
yes,
no, it won't work.
Okay.
You're trying to set a variable that doesn't exist.
Can we just go to the top and try to comment out those lines and
Sure.
run it?
Let's do this guy.
Yeah, not these ones. 11, 13, 15,
Well, I know,
17.
With these, it will work because you don't have to declare the fields. Remember, it creates them for you automatically.
Yes, yes. So I was
So if
asking
I
that.
do
Then
that,
yeah, we're good.
make sure that everything's good. Okay. Come in here.
Yeah. So,
Because you've never had to do it in your
yep.
stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you know it
That
works.
was. Yep.
But if I try to run this one without those being
This
declared,
way.
it'll fail.
Right. Got it. Yes.
So there you go. Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to turn off the recording now.